Ladies and gentlemen, today marks 5 months since I was fired from Walmart. I have been in the humiliating position of having to rely on my parents again for 5 months. If you've been with me since at least the unemployment rant, you know that I filed for unemployment benefits but was denied by the state of Kansas and was never reached regarding my appeal. And that's because, unfortunately, the government here favors corporations and get entertainment in watching us peasants suffer, even after keeping their heads above water throughout the coronavirus pandemic. But you know, unemployment is a mercy from having to deal with the bullshit that comes with being a Walmart associate. Shitty supervisors, lies from management, constantly changing schedule, 10+ hour workdays, non-existent vacation time, a secret system of retaliation, constant threats of termination, and for the women, sexual harassment. Things certainly aren't helped if the vast majority of your fellow associates are easily convinced by Walmart's propaganda machine, especially if Walmart is pushing an anti-union agenda. When your workplace has to push an anti-union agenda, it means that they are not keen on treating workers the way they should be treated. That much should be obvious right out of the gate. Today, I'm going to go over the offenses that Walmart especially commits against those employed with them, and then I'd like to go over and debunk their anti-union, anti-worker agenda. Let's start with the fact that Walmart is the largest employer in the United States, with a legion of 2.3 million wage slave employees worldwide. A lot of what I'm going to talk about are practices that are not exclusive to Walmart. It is a known fact that these things also occur in corporations such as Amazon, GameStop, Lowe's, Kroger, Walgreens, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, CVS, Taco Bell, McDonald's, Starbucks, Best Buy, UPS, Chipotle, IKEA. Look, it's probably happening everywhere. Maybe not all to the extent as Walmart, Amazon, and GameStop. Maybe this video is just to shine a light on the disturbing truth of a day in the life of the peasants of capitalism. But as a former Walmart associate, I feel inclined to speak out, because out of the 8 bad practices I named at the beginning of the video, I experienced 6 of them. My supervisors were constantly miserable. All they would do is bark orders. They were never thankful for our hard work. They took us for granted. I could get everything finished before lunch and still be bitched at because goddamn cardboard, goddamn pallets, shut around. I mocked the hell out of him, but that's all that fucking maintenance supervisor would do. He would hard-ass you over the dumbest things. I think he was like 60 or something, so sure he's on the older side, but he's not frail and suffering from dementia, and if he is, he should be in a retirement home or literally anywhere but Walmart working. At that age, you're perfectly capable of taking cardboard boxes and throwing them in the compactor. No sense of teamwork. All the supervisors would do half the time is walk around and delegate, as one supervisor from a video put it. Unfortunately, I think that the associate filming his termination had his video removed, or he got rid of it himself, but that is the mindset of Walmart supervisors. They practically do whatever the hell they want, and anything they don't want to do, they make the associates do it. It's a position that is given to you if you stay there for long enough, and if management likes you enough. And yet the supervisors look down on the associates as though the associates are their property. Unfortunately, that carries over into how the women exclusively are treated. I understand that you don't have to be a woman to face sexual harassment, and that it's not just supervisors that do the harassing, but far more often than not, it's a male supervisor sexually harassing a female associate. In fact, it was noted that the maintenance supervisor at the Walmart I worked at is a harasser himself. He would not only intimidate the people working there, but he would philander with the younger women. At which point I probably should have grown some balls and beat his ass, because I'm sure he would have turned out to be a predator if it weren't for his job at Walmart. Apparently before his wife died, he would flirt around with the female associates and basically cheat on his wife, the scum fuck. I'm sure that I don't know the full story and every disgusting act that man in particular has committed, but just from what I've been told, there have been worse cases of sexual harassment involving Walmart. In cases where associates have sexually harassed other associates, management did nothing but tell the harassed associate to deal with it, and then fire the harassed associate when they called HR. Male supervisors have been known to walk into the women's restroom to stalk and harass female associates. Stories have surfaced involving groping. Walmart has been sued multiple times regarding mistreatment of associates and sexual misconduct among their teams, but it seems like nothing will ever be done about it, especially when it comes to management and team leads acting this way. As entry-level workers, we are manipulated by team leads and management into obeying every command and cowering in fear when these god wannabes get angry, as well as acting in desperation when our jobs are threatened. Walmart team leads act in much the same way rapists do. They weaponize fear in order to produce a result out of the people they subjugate. If a rapist wants their victim to send nudes, the rapist has no qualms of using threats and blackmailing to get what they want. If a team lead wants an associate to perform a certain important task, they have no qualms with berating that associate or threatening to fire them in order to produce obedience. Unfortunately, this can go both ways. If a team lead wants an associate to send erotic photos, the team lead will have no qualms with threatening physical harm, job termination, worsening the work conditions, treating that associate worse from that point forward if they don't comply, and blackmailing the associate. Sexual predators of all kinds should be eliminated. I have no problem stating that I support the death penalty for sexual predators. I also mentioned a management team full of liars, and the constant lies from my Walmart management team, specifically the staff manager, is ultimately what led to my termination. I was told twice, once when I was being interviewed by the staff manager, and again on my very first day when I was doing the first chunk of CBLs, that I was going to have a set schedule, and that was supposed to be 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Wednesday through Saturday. Everything went smoothly until around the holiday season. I attribute it less to me realizing that Walmart was nothing but my old job, but with slightly higher pay, and more the fact that Walmart was showing me its true colors. It started with Thanksgiving week, which I was able to keep track of, but not the week of Christmas. We were closed, I believe, Christmas Eve, which was when I thought I was working, and I thought the store was closing for the 23rd. It turns out that wasn't the case, so I ended up missing a day. I reported this to my staff manager, and she told me there was a last-minute change in the schedule. That was my first no-call, no-show. The second would be during the snowstorm, the Wednesday of that week. It may have been the 2nd of February, actually, but I remember only being able to make it in that Friday because my dad was home and let me use his car. After lunch around 4 a.m., my proper supervisor comes to where I'm working and tells me that I had a no-call, no-show for that Wednesday, and while it doesn't necessarily have to do with my schedule, it still has to do with management lying right to my face. But I accrued a no-call, no-show because on Wednesday, I only went and applied my protected paid time off for that day and Thursday. But I didn't go through the website or call the number Wednesday because I didn't think I had to. I was unaware that I still had to call off to get that day off. Keep in mind, I had been working for a different retail chain for 2 years, up until 7 months prior. Obviously, that store did things differently, and you could just put in an ask-off slip and not have to worry about calling the store up or any of that hassle on that day. Granted, you'd usually file that at least a week in advance, but at my old store, you didn't have to worry about accruing points if you had to miss a day. One time, a guy asked off for a whole ass 3 months and didn't get in trouble for it. Walmart would have just told him don't bother coming back. And I'll speak more on extended leave in a minute, but unexpected snowstorm rolls in, my car gets plowed in, I have to miss work, I file my... Jesus Christ, what the fuck is up with that train? God, that sounds creepy as shit. I file my PPTO and neglect to call in simply because I was unaware that I would still need to do that. I'm only able to make it in that Friday because my dad's car does better with icy roads and snow and shit. And I'm told that I have a no-call, no-show for Wednesday. I was told by my veteran grandmother that I had to do that or else they'd get me for it. So Thursday, same process except I go through the website. On Friday, my supervisor tells me that I need to speak with the staff manager about the no-call, no-show. I speak to her and I am told that it did not count against me as either a point or a no-call, no-show. Thing is, I knew that was a lie because the next day my dad is out on a guy's night out, and my car is dead from the extreme cold, so I have no choice but to stay home. I call in and put in my PPTO, and then the coach calls me and tells me that natural disaster, the reason I put in, was no longer approved, and that if I didn't come in, it would have been my third no-call, no-show plus termination. So yeah, what the staff manager said was lies being told right to my goddamn face. I honestly was contemplating not even showing up that next Wednesday. At the time, I was keen on just eating my termination, but if it were happening right now, I would have quit for being lied to. That's just one of the ways unemployment has awakened me, I guess, but the final nail in the coffin of my employment with Walmart would come in the form of them tacking on extra days to my schedule. On top of that, they were cutting an hour here and there, and I would be getting off at 6 instead of 7, which I didn't really mind because all I was doing 75% of the time after lunch was zoning lawn and garden and being bored out of my mind. Which, the only time the supervisors were truly impressed with my work was when I zoned the clearance aisle, after days of it just being trashed. It even got the attention of our jaded store director. But they started tacking on extra days, and communication from my supervisor, or anyone for that matter, was non-existent. All they did or ever cared to do was bark orders. Even if I were to say anything about it, I would bet everything that I own on them, just using the excuse that the associates should know to check the schedule and that it's not their job to tell people when they're working, simply because they, the team leads, are too lazy to let people know that there's an extra day that week that the associate is required to work, and a Tuesday being tacked onto my schedule. Plus the lack of communication led to me walking into a third no-call, no-show and termination. Of course, the coach told me at the end of my day when I was about to leave, just so they could squeeze the last few drops of surplus value out of me. In the months after my ejection, things have reportedly gotten worse as far as scheduling goes. Like my old store, associates no longer see 2 days off in a row. Coupled with that is the fact that associates are being required to work 10-plus hour days, which is a situation that you could only have the misfortune of finding yourself in at my old store, whereas rather than being outright required, you could work a morning shift and then be forced to cover an evening shift for a part-timer. But the Walmart I worked for has become part of the cesspool of poorly run stores that exist across the U.S., although as far as as I know, it has not yet gotten as bad as a full 20-hour shift being assigned to one associate. 20 hours. At that point, you're just asking for inefficient work. Walmart corporate believes its associates to be robots that can survive a car crash, operate for almost a day without malfunctioning, that have no emotions so they don't respond to being berated and insulted, that don't need food so why bother paying them more than what their bills cost, robots that you can just take into the restroom and use them as some sort of living sex doll, and that can withstand sub-zero temperatures and blizzard conditions. Your team lead does not care about you, and that's the mindset of management, that employees are 100% disposable and easily replaceable. In fact, they even want to replace employees, especially after a certain period of time. The employees that have been working there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years are beginning to face a worsening of working conditions and stipulations because Walmart is either trying to get their most experienced workers, veterans, to quit, or find any excuse to fire them so they can hire fresh new workers, preferably young people, at lower wages, and present the toxic work environment as standard. I did mention that my old employer was much more lenient than Walmart and let a guy take 3 months off, and they did not fire him or punish him. And this person was a guy, so it's not like he was pregnant, unless parental leave for men does exist in the United States. But at my old store, you didn't have to worry about accruing too many points and being fired for taking too much time off. It's a liberty I wish I still had in November, as my mother was down here for 2 weeks, and I only got to see her twice that whole time because she was mostly busy taking care of my grandmother, who is being ravaged by Alzheimer's disease. But this point system is yet another way that Walmart restrains its associates, because if they had an opportunity to take 2 weeks off and visit with their mother, who is visiting for the first time in 2.5 years, mind you, they have to worry how it will affect their attendance record, and if they'll even still have a job by the time that 2 weeks is over. Whereas at my old store, I would have been able to file an ask-off slip for those 2 weeks a month in advance, and if the higher-ups approved it, I could relax and visit with my mother for 2 weeks and not have to worry about a thing. Walmart is a different story. If I asked for that 2 weeks off, I probably would have been told to not bother coming back to work. For the female associates that get pregnant, it's a sure thing that they will have to start looking for new employment once the pregnancy is over. Even with the associates that they are more lenient with, they never offer maternity pay, and Walmart temporarily suspends their employment, only to offer the mother her job back once the maternity leave period is over. Walmart has conned multiple mothers into eating a termination and leaving the new family to suffer financially. They would rather see newborn infants die of starvation than sacrifice their bottom line, or perhaps the old pervert of a manager is angered by the fact that the woman has her own romantic affairs. My old employer might sound like a nice place to work, but keep in mind this is a place that paid and still does pay its associates $7.25 per hour. That's the equivalent of working for an hour and only being able to afford a Big Mac and a large order of fries from McDonald's. Maybe if the payout were immediate as you clock out, it'd be easier to just clock in, do an hour of work, and swing by McDonald's and pick up your dinner. But for what you have to deal with, and that meal being but a blip compared to your bills, subscription services, dues, car insurance, utilities, groceries, and especially rent, and the cost of the gas to get you to said McDonald's, you're still being way underpaid. But even with the double hourly pay at Walmart, it was still extremely difficult to get by. It could have just been the paycheck coming once every 2 weeks as opposed to once every week at my old store, but it wasn't until after I started my employment with Walmart that I first dipped into a negative balance. Again, double hourly pay, and it's still not enough to pay my bills. It's not like I'm spending my entire paycheck in one go. That's just the effects of rent, phone bills, car insurance, groceries, and gas. I think you'll find it hard to pay for all of that without burning through the vast majority of your $700 paycheck, especially with how things have been going since the start of the year. But let's talk about Walmart's system of retaliation, and unfortunately this isn't exclusive to Walmart. Things as small as taking a vacation, and things as big as calling HR have resulted in workers facing backlash from their supervisors, cut hours, rejection of promotions, and even in some cases, job termination. Everything I've talked about in this video culminates to this. To Walmart, the fact that the associates would dare raise a stink about any of this is an insult to their corporate power and dominance. The first time that maintenance supervisor bitched me out, I rose a stink with the staff manager about it, and I made it clear that I'm not one to put up with that shit. She said she would have the coach talk to the maintenance supervisor about how to properly interact with the associates. But was anything actually ever done? I don't think so. The guy was still a major hard-ass that thought it was his place to bark orders at the stalking associates. People can tell me all they want that him being a maintenance supervisor doesn't matter, and that regardless he is a supervisor and I should respect him. No. Number one, it's called minding your own fucking business and focusing on your own duties. Because with that logic, it seems like this guy was bored and wanted to ruin someone's day. Number two, I don't care if I fall squarely under your command. I don't care if you're the fucking CEO of the company. The minute you start treating workers like shit, you lose my respect. Trust me, I had to learn the hard way, but if people knew their rights as workers and had any respect for themselves, they wouldn't put up with this shit. And it's exactly why people don't want to work in retail anymore. People shouldn't trust Walmart anyway, when the people running the place are such pathological liars. They cut your hours for missing a day you didn't know you were supposed to work. They fire people new and experienced to avoid giving raises, discounts, benefits, the whole shebang. And also so they can add it to their corporate bonuses. And I know they do this around the holiday season for bigger bonuses. They no longer care to staff their employees in a way that is comfortable, and when the associates complain about it, their schedule either gets worse or they get their hours cut so badly that they only get a couple hours a week. They say that full-time status is something that's earned, but who the hell is actually working as a full-time associate? They keep people below the full-time threshold on purpose so they don't have to give them benefits. In some cases, they require their associates to work off the clock just to keep them below the full-time threshold. No, dude. Either work and get paid for that work, or don't work. Funny story, there was this one time that I accrued a point for an early out, and it was 2 hours before the actual end of my shift. Only problem being I never clocked out early, except for when the maintenance supervisor bitched me out. But that was at 2 in the morning, so that was 5 hours before the end of my shift. So that really makes me wonder if they adjusted my timesheet to where I clocked out at 5, only so they didn't have to pay me for 2 hours of work. I wish I could prove it. I even sent a screenshot of it and sent it to my grandmother the morning I got fired, but now my account is deactivated so I can't access the records. Really shady if you ask me. Unfortunately, despite everything, Walmart's HR team is unresponsive. I tried emailing them the day after I got fired, and it was a pretty lengthy email that talked about the lies that were being told to me by management. I talked about that shady early out point. I mentioned the way the associates were being treated by the supervisors. Never got an email back, never got a call, just dead silence. Unless they just have a TLDR folder that they just put my email into, HR pretty much serves no purpose at Walmart. This can be a bad thing for obvious reasons. If a young female associate is being sexually harassed by her old creep of a supervisor, where is HR going to be to protect her? Are they going to do anything, or are they just going to let it fester until they end up in court over it, or the harassment escalates until the associate is either raped or groomed? HR is allowing toxic leadership to take over the company, and they are allowing store leads to require associates to work off the clock. The working off the clock part is especially concerning, as it has similarities to the labor tax in France that was levied on the peasants prior to the French Revolution, in which workers were required to work a certain number of days for their lord without pay. But everything that goes on here in the States is only the beginning of the harsh labor and low wages that Walmart associates are subject to. Slavery was never truly abolished. Really, it was exiled, and the responsibility of owning slaves was shifted from the plantation owners to the CEOs. And I bring this up because Walmart uses child labor in their factories in Bangladesh. It's the kind of atrocity you would expect to happen during the Industrial Revolution. But Walmart-owned factories in Bangladesh are doing this in the present day. These aren't your run-of-the-mill 16-year-olds working a summer job. These are young kids, 10-year-olds, that kind of young. The kids are being physically abused, some just collapsing from exhaustion. Women are being made to work 14-plus hour days, putting chalk on pants for over 6 months with no days off. These workers are being paid the Bangladeshi minimum wage of, I guess at the time it was $37 a month. Where does that sound familiar, I wonder?
How the fuck is she supposed to eat 3 meals a day when she can only afford 7 pot pies across the span of 30 fucking days?
Being retired and only getting $37 a month in food stamps is already beyond atrocious. Working in the brutal Walmart-owned factories for over 14 hours, sometimes even into the night, and working 20-hour shifts just putting chalk on pants and getting berated, physically abused, and worked to the point of collapsing from exhaustion, and for over half a year with no days off. Putting up with all that bullshit and only getting paid $37 a month for it, you could only hope to stop me from plotting a workers' uprising and seeing it through to the bloody end. There's not much keeping this from being a reality in the States. I'm surprised Walmart even bothers to pay its workers as high as they do. No one can faithfully dismiss communism as work and starve, as opposed to capitalism being work or starve, when the Bangladeshi proletariat, even with a brutal factory job, are brushing their teeth with their fingers and ashes from a fire. That can't be healthy. Walmart is able to sell us cheap goods not just because the product is cheaply made, but because they exploit a large force of cheap, borderline free labor. And trust me, I know people are flooding the comments with, "Your smartphone was made from child labor too." It's unfortunate. Everyone probably has at least one item in their home that was made by a child in either Bangladesh or India, Southeast Asia, China, Africa, or wherever cheap child labor is being exploited. And that's because since child labor and slavery is outlawed in the United States, companies will instead get their goods from countries where that's not illegal so they can exploit cheap labor and not have to pay their workers a living wage. And in Bangladesh they get as close to free labor as almost anywhere else in the world. It's why the US manufacturing industry is so weak. Because the government doesn't want to build new factories because it's going to hurt the bottom line of the CEOs that line the pockets of the politicians. Because then they won't get to abuse the factory workers and make them pull day-long shifts and pay them next to nothing. So tell me people, who do you trust? Walmart is the one pushing an anti-union agenda despite toxic supervisory, deceptive management, luring their employees into scheduling traps and terminating for missing days that weren't part of the associates' set schedule, making the associates work long hours, long days, giving out vacation time at such a slow rate that associates only get 2 weeks off every 6 years, punishing workers when they do take some time off or complain about the working conditions, although in ways that aren't completely obvious, replacing older workers that have been given raises and benefits with new workers for a cheaper wage and with no benefits, worsening their working conditions and presenting it to the new workers as standard, not only allowing sexual harassment to take place, but in some cases even enabling it, an HR department that doesn't do shit, and they use overseas cheap child labor to manufacture the goods they sell. Are you going to trust such a disgustingly anti-worker corporation, or are you going to trust a union? Walmart claims to be pro-associate, but anyone that's worked there for any amount of time knows that that's far from the truth. Walmart claims that paying a third party to discuss problems with management is unnecessary since the company's open-door policy already fills that role. The issue with that is HR does absolutely nothing, and doesn't even try to interact with associates in any way, shape, or form, and when something does happen, it usually blows up in the face of the disgruntled associate. Walmart claims that it is not outright anti-union, but this is disproven by the fact that an associate can be talking about a family reunion, and a manager or team lead will not hesitate in trying to pull that associate into the office and do whatever, whether that's inform them on how unions are a sham, outright discourage unionization, or even fire the associate on the spot. Walmart and other companies, Amazon especially, have been employing union-busting tactics that come straight out of the 19th century. Companies that know their workers are dissatisfied with the company are hiring spies to gather intel and derail unionization efforts among disgruntled associates. Unfortunately, union busting has been carried out by Walmart since the days of Sam Walton and against the Walmarts of individual small towns, so we know that Walmart's entire history is tainted by poor leadership and terrible working conditions. This isn't exclusive to Doug McMillon's Walmart, although the worsening of working conditions has accelerated under Doug McMillon. Walmart has closed stores and changed how products come in just to avoid unionization. Walmart has even pulled its stores out of entire countries just to fight unionization efforts among its associates. So I absolutely encourage Walmart associates to unionize en masse, no matter what country you're from. Walmart isn't going to shut down every single store. They're not going to fire every single associate or discontinue every single department if associates unionize. They may try to compromise their way out of worker unionization, but after everything they have put their associates current and former through, all the lies they have told their associates beforehand, no one should trust them. Associates should make unionization a non-negotiable goal, and just do it. Sure, unions will have you pay the monthly due, but that is the price of admission of escaping the abhorrent working conditions. And union dues will typically only take 1% of your paycheck. For a Walmart associate making $700 every 2 weeks, that's $1,400 per month, which would result in a due of about $14. About the same price as a pack of frozen burritos. So the whole "they make you pay money" argument is an exaggeration, especially when you consider the fact that union workers generally get paid better than non-union workers. And if you can't take my word for it, since I'm not a union worker, take the advice of actual union workers. Ask them about it. At the very least, Walmart associates should organize mass walkouts and strikes until Walmart either goes defunct or they agree to treat their associates better and pay them better, and hold them accountable. The minute they go back on any promises, quit. Walmart might think that employees are disposable, but a light needs to be shown on how they treat their associates. There's already a faint light that shines on Walmart's mistreatment of their associates, but if the vast majority of their global employees were to unionize or go on strike, only then can the light be as bright as the sun. Customers already hate shopping at Walmart as it is. Exposing the poor treatment of the associates may get people to vote with their wallets and choose to shop elsewhere, and sacrifice Walmart's low prices for a place that has higher prices but at least treats their employees with a little more respect so as to not go out of their way to combat unionization, or lie to and trick their employees into eating a termination and doesn't exploit child labor. Whatever you do, just quit giving Walmart your money. They don't deserve it. Doug McMillon has enough yachts, the Waltons have enough mansions, and Greg Penner's got enough Ferraris. Shop anywhere besides Walmart, whether that's Publix, Rite Aid, Country Mart, Ray's, BJ's, Buy-Mart, Fred Meyer, Save-A-Lot, Piggly Wiggly, Thriftway, Trader Joe's, and if you work at Walmart, work on getting out of there ASAP, whatever you end up doing. Don't do what I did and trap yourself there just because $14.50 an hour. I think that's where I'm going to sign off. If you enjoyed this video, if you got some use out of it, please be sure to click thumbs up, share the video far and wide, leave your thoughts in the comments below. What kind of horror stories did a stint as a Walmart associate grace you with? Do you plan to unionize or go on strike because of my video? Did I inspire you to organize worker action? Tell me what you're thinking in the comments below, and please be sure to subscribe for more content like this. I may start doing this every month on the 17th and just to talk about Walmart, or maybe even other terrible things that companies are doing to their employees, but please also click the bell if you'd like to get notified when I upload new content to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon for another video. Bye guys.